There are some people who remain unnamed in the book.
They're still alive.
And there are some people who are still alive who are named.
They don't mind because I say nice things about them.
And then some people you don't say such nice things about.
They deserve it.
Do you like holding a grudge?
I don't have a choice. I'm a Scorpio. We hold grudges. It's not an attractive thing to say about yourself. I struggle against it, but not very hard.
In the heart of Toronto, beneath the vaulted ceilings of the Thomas Fisher Rare Book Library, history rests quietly between the pages. It is a place where stories endure and home to the largest collection of Margaret Atwood's archives. Taking up more than 100 meters of shelf space, inside hundreds of these boxes, you will find everything from the early stories she wrote as a child, handwritten drafts of her poetry, short stories and novels, manuscripts, research, letters, photographs. Even Margaret Atwood's artwork is here. Few authors have shaped the landscape of modern literature and popular culture like Margaret Atwood. For more than 6 decades, she has challenged the way we see the world through her examinations of power, identity, and the human spirit, her playfulness and a sense of humor that can surprise you, and her prescient warnings of dystopian futures in novels like The Handmaid's Tale. And now, after writing more than 50 books, Margaret Atwood is finally sharing her story with Book of Lives, a memoir of sorts. This is my conversation with one of Canada's true national treasures. Margaret Atwood, nice to see you. Thank you.
Lovely to see you again.
The last time you and I spoke, we were on a stage and you were finishing this book and you said you were nervous about it. Why would you be nervous about telling your own story?
Well, I think I was nervous about the ending.
Yeah.
It's not going to end happily ever after, Matt. Just letting you know.
Just in case people don't know where
Yeah.
the ending goes. When you go through your life and go through all of the kind of bits and pieces of your life, was it emotional in putting that together, but also just going through photos and
Yeah,
letters?
that was a huge job,
Yeah.
huge. We've all got way too many photos. But the first part of it, of course, was my publishers trying to talk me into doing it. Why would I do that? And I said, what exactly are you thinking about? And they said, well, a literary memoir. I said, so that would mean I wrote a book, I wrote a book, I wrote a book, I wrote a book. That sounds pretty boring to me. I said, no, a memoir in a literary style. And that was even worse. So then I thought a memoir is what you remember. It's not like a biography in which people go through all kinds of stuff you've forgotten about. And what you remember usually is silly things you did, evil things other people did to you. You don't so much remember the evil things you did to other people. And catastrophes and exceptional high points, and the rest of it, like went for a walk, you tend not to remember. So I concentrated on those things, and that was fun because they were memorable, to me anyway.
Tell me about when you were young growing up in the bush. You spent a lot of time in the woods. Your father was a scientist and he studied bugs.
Insects.
Insects.
Yes, please.
Thank you. And because of that, you spent 6 months in the bush and then 6 months in the city. What was that like?
Everybody's childhood seems normal to them because they've got nothing to compare it with. So it was just normal life. And up in the woods, no electricity, no running water, no flush toilets. And things were done differently. So kerosene lamps and wood-burning stoves, which was very useful to me when I came to write about the 19th century, because that's how everyone was living then. I think it was pretty good. There was nothing else to do in the media area, so no television, no theaters, no school, no. That wasn't always bad, because my days in early school, the 40s, it was line up and march. It was still the war, and that's how they did things. Boys' door, girls' door. what would happen if you went in the wrong door? It's too horrifying even to think about. So yeah, it was a lot more free and easy. And if we did our school lessons very quickly, then we could go out and do whatever we wanted, which has made me a very superficial person.
You also started writing, and you wrote, and it's in this building, in this library, your first opus, a book of poems you wrote in grade 1 called Rhyming Cats.
And illustrated.
Very nice.
I did the cover, a tradition that continued, because when I got into small press publishing, it was cheaper.
Why cats?
Oh, I was obsessed with them.
But you weren't allowed to have one.
I was not allowed to have one because if you took a cat up to the woods, it would escape and be eaten by something. So I did eventually get one, with whom I was extremely bonded, and he used to bring me dead birds in through the window, and sometimes semi-dead birds, and on one memorable occasion, a rabbit.
It means it liked you.
Oh, it did like me, yes, it had good reason to like me, even though I used to dress it up in a bonnet.
Tell me about Ms. Bessie Billings. She was your high school teacher.
Miss Bessie Billings, a memorable character. When I started writing poetry, I actually showed her one of my indecipherable, Byronic, dark, Gothic poems. And she said, "I don't understand this at all, dear, so it must be good."
She said you had a feeling for words and an observant eye.
So after she was dead, someone found this note that she had written to the other English teachers in the school and sent it to me. So I didn't know this until quite far along the pathway, but she was looking out for me and felt that I should be encouraged. And it was she who told me to go here and go to Victoria College because it had the best English department. So in those days, universities didn't hire women much. And Victoria did, they had a couple, but the other colleges didn't. So there were a lot of very qualified women who should have been teaching university who were teaching high school. And we had the benefit of them.
What did your parents think of you declaring that you wanted to be a writer?
I think they were horrified.
Horrified.
Probably. What? I think they were, she'll get over it. But being my parents, they didn't say any of this. My mother said, "If you're going to be a writer, you better learn to spell." I was a bad speller. A lot of writers are because they spell by ear. So I said, others will do that for me, and they have. So then they invited a second cousin who actually was a journalist, because I said I was going to go write for a newspaper, bit their tongues. Invited this journalist to dinner, and he said that if I were going to work for a newspaper as a female person, I would end up writing the obituaries and the ladies' pages, and that would be it. So then I thought, well, maybe I should go to university after all.
You say, you say in the book that, I mean, at that time, there wasn't, and you're hinting at this, there wasn't really a literary scene in this country. And you say
well, there was. It was just very underground and quite small.
You say the Canadians didn't respect writing, especially Canadian writing.
At that time, that is absolutely true. And I was told by other people, if you want to be a writer, you better go to England, or you'd better go to New York, or if you were French speaking, you should go to Paris.
Why didn't you do that? Why did you stay?
Well, I did go to the States, but not as a writer. I went as a graduate student. Why did I come back and stay? The Canada Council had gotten up and running, and things had begun happening that were not happening in, say, 1948. And there were other people my age who also had stayed. And some of them then started literary magazines, some of them started little publishing companies, and I got associated with one of those.
What was You talk about the reception that you were getting when you were writing. You were interviewed by a male radio journalist when you published The Edible Woman, who said, "I haven't read your book and I'm not going to. Tell me in 25 words or less what it's about."
That's what radio was like then. What can I tell you?
I like to believe it's different now, but
Oh, I'm
continue.
sure it's different. You've looked at the pictures anyway.
You also did a book signing, what, in the men's sock and underwear department of the Hudson Bay Company?
You're stealing my lines. Yes, my first professional book signing was in Edmonton, and it was in November when everybody had galoshes. And it was in the men's sock and underwear department of the Hudson's Bay Company. And why did they put it there? My only explanation is it was near the escalator. And I think they thought people going up and down the escalator would see me sitting with my pathetic little table of edible women amongst the jockey shorts and would run over and buy them, which they didn't. What happened instead was that men in on their lunch break to buy some socks took one look at this and galloped away in their galoshes.
Your longtime partner, Graeme Gibson, was a part of that nascent sort of literary scene. And you write about how you met him for the first time at a literary event in Toronto. What do you remember about that?
Oh, that was the Milton Acorn People's Poets Prize, which we invented for Milton because he hadn't won the Governor General's Award and his ex-wife, whom he was still pursuing, had won it. So we invented this thing, and we even made a medal, and we had a party for it. So all the poets came, and Graeme was there, and he hadn't won it either, and I hadn't won it either. But I'd read his book, which was 5 Legs, and I thought it was really good, and I said, I thought you should have won it. I was not flirting.
You're very explicit in saying that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't flirtation, it was just a statement. So I think that made an impression on him.
You read his poem as well?
That was later.
You're a poem reader?
Yes.
You say that just, yes, I'm a
Well,
poem reader.
everybody asks me about that. I guess they think it's weird. I don't do it professionally. I don't charge money. If you want me to read yours, I'm happy to take a look. I see you have a rather frightened look on your face.
I wonder what my poem would say. Are you going to read my poem?
Right in front of everybody?
Oh, my goodness.
Let's see. I have to see both.
Oh, both.
You're right-handed or left-handed?
Are you going to give me bad news?
No, I'm not. You're very healthy and you're going to live a long time. I don't say that to everybody. Well, you're a pretty stable character. Now I need my glasses.
I've created a disruption by asking.
You have.
I had no idea. Sorry, this is not.
Yeah, okay. So, ooh, how stable you are. Wow. You rarely see a hand like this. So this is the hand you were dealt, and this is the one you've played, and they are pretty similar. The only difference is you've cut back a bit on your intuitive functions here. You can see that shorter. And you are really not going to be a bloodthirsty dictator. Sorry about that. You do have some unexplored artistic capabilities of an, excuse me, minor kind.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just a sec, I'm not finished.
Oh, there's more.
You'd rather not have confrontations. You'd rather sort of maneuver your way around. And you're not going crazy anytime soon.
I think all of that sounds fairly reasonable and maybe actually vaguely accurate too. Thank you.
Yeah, some people, at least most people, have at least a few, minor depressions and things. But
What did Graeme make of you reading his poem?
I think he liked me holding his hand.
You say in the book that he would look at you and he would think canoe trips.
Well, that's a joke. So, you know, in those days, people look at you and they think different things. But I think he thought canoe trips. Because it's not easy. It's not easy always to find somebody who'll go on canoe trips with you and be any good at it.
You said earlier that when you met him, you weren't flirting.
No.
You were both married at the time. Was that
More or less.
More or less. Was it scandalous at the time?
The 60s? Are you joking? 1970 was the year that everybody's marriage exploded like popcorn. You could just hear them exploding all across the country. So I think what happened was a couple of things. It was very hard to get a divorce in 1960 and much easier in 1970. And I think a lot of people who had been bottling up their desire to get divorced, woo, here we go. But it was also a point at which grown men were wearing love beads and going peace and other obnoxious things like that, which I was really a bit too old for. But so I wasn't a hippie, and I wasn't a beatnik. We were existentialists. So what does that mean? You are what you do.
You are what you do.
Yeah.
One of the neat things about this book is that you realize that a lot of the characters that we know from your novels are drawn from actual real people. And I mean, you can offer plausible deniability when you're doing interviews about the books, but it turns out that maybe there were real people, like the mean girl in Cat's Eye is a real person.
So let me quote Robertson Davies, who, when asked why at the age of 60 he had suddenly broken out into novel writing after not having done it for years, he said 2 words: people died. In other words, now that all these people are dead, I can say these things that I wouldn't have said earlier, not just for fear of being sued, but for fear of, you know, wounding them or causing a family fracas or something like that. So people died. I'm 85. A lot of people have died. So I can actually say these things now without destroying somebody else's life, except for the people whose lives I wish to destroy.
Can I ask you about that? There are some people who remain unnamed in the book.
They're still alive.
And there are some people who are still alive who are named.
They don't mind because I say nice things about them.
And then some people you don't say such nice things about, like...
They deserve it.
Jan Wong from the Globe and Mail.
That was bad. She shouldn't have done that.
Do you like holding a grudge?
I don't have a choice. I'm a Scorpio. We hold grudges. It's not an attractive thing to say about yourself. I struggle against it, but not very hard.
When I came into this space here, I just looked over behind us, and there's an early draft of The Handmaid's Tale.
Yes.
You said you started writing that book, put it down, started writing because it was too weird even for you.
And?
What did you mean by that? Why was it too weird even for you?
Okay. I had written some somewhat weird things already. I never tell my publishers what I'm writing because I know that they will say, "What? You're writing what?" So imagine that I had said to them, okay, I'm writing a book set in the future about the United States as a theocratic dictatorship. Can you imagine what they would have thought of that in 1984, when America was the beacon of light to the Soviet bloc? Nobody would have believed it. They would have thought I was bonkers, and so forth. And my publisher acquired it in a blind auction and was probably pretty horrified when she found out what she had bought.
Why, if it was too weird for you, did you keep going at it?
Because, as I say, my family contains a lot of eccentric people. It was just, if you're trying to write something else and it's not working, and then you try to write some other thing and it's not working, you realize that you've been trying to write those other things that weren't working because you're avoiding the thing you should be writing. So I really had to get back to it and do it, otherwise I wouldn't be able to write anything else.
How do you understand why so many people say that it's more relevant now than it was even when it was published?
It wasn't very relevant when it was published. That's just it. Although some people in the States said, how long have we got? But people in Europe just didn't believe it. You know, the United States would never, ever, 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 ever go that way. But Ronald Reagan had been elected in 1980, and there was already a push in that direction from the rising religious right wing. So I was looking at what they were saying and wondering how you would enact that. You know, if you wanted to get women back into the home, how are you going to make them go there? So that was part of it. So then we had the fall of the Berlin Wall, then we had the 90s, which I can't remember very well because I was writing 3 big novels. And anyway, what went on in the 90s? Can you remember?
There was great music.
There was great music.
Yes.
Anything else?
It's like a test. It felt like a time of possibility, but also a weird transition, right?
Yeah, but transition to what?
Well, people were worried about Y2K and...
Oh yeah, they were a bit. That towards the end of the 90s, that fizzled out. I think in the 90s people thought, oh good, the Cold War is over, it's going to be world peace. Somebody wrote a book called The End of History, apparently not so much. And then it was 9/11 and everything changed. Then we had a little interlude, which we will call either the Obama years or There Was Silence in Heaven, and then then you get the last trumpet. So then we have the election of Donald Trump, and the fantasies of the religious right started being enacted. We were filming Handmaid's Tale, the TV show, beginning late 2016 summer. And we were still filming it in November, and we woke up on the day after the election, and everybody had the same thought, which was, we're in a different show. Nothing about the show changed, but the frame changed. And it was viewed differently from the way it would have been. It was no longer a remote fantasy, it was an approaching reality. So no, I don't think we're going to get the outfits. But the rest of it, you know, it's not just something I made up.
What have you learned about how, I mean, I think people see what's going on right now, and they see people being, you know, scooped off the streets and put onto planes and sent off to other countries and whatever. And they're wondering how they push back. They're wondering how they fight back against that. What have you learned about that?
Okay. You just had a huge No Kings event in the United States, so that's part of it. There's a lot of pushback through the courts. But when I see, you know, these facilities being built and people being scooped with no warrant and things, it's the 30s. And it's also, you know, violently unconstitutional. And you are seeing a move away from the principles on which the United States was founded in the 18th century, back towards absolutism. And the reason the founding fathers of the United States set it up as a republic and not a monarchy was that they'd seen what was happening with monarchies for many hundreds of years in Europe, which were widespread wars and abuse of citizens. So they wanted to avoid that. They wanted to put in checks and balances so they would never be in the clutches of Mad King George III. And there is a deliberate attempt to destroy that in the United States now. So these people want to disassemble the United States and put it back together as something else. Either that or it's a deep plot to wreck the whole country, because that is the effect that it appears to be having. That's one side of it. The other side is Americans are ornery. They don't like lining up and saluting. They don't like other people telling them what to do or say or think or read. There is an inherent, oh no, I won'tness about Americans, and that is now coming out. I think they're coming out of their shock and numbness and fear that they had right after the election, and they're putting on frog suits and having big rallies.
And fighting back.
Well, I wouldn't call it fighting yet. We're not having physical violence, and that's smart of them. They may have paid attention to Gandhi and his principles of nonviolent resistance. So they know the other side is just looking for a chance to send in the stormtroopers. So best not to be violent. Anyway, it's very, very interesting. And let us be clear, it's not Americans that Canadians dislike. It is what's going on right now, which is by no means all Americans. In fact, when you go down there, people begin, oh, you're Canadian, I'm so sorry. So don't forget that part, and don't start going, we hate Americans, because that's silly.
When we started talking, you said that one of the things that you were nervous about with this book was the end, and writing about the end.
The end.
Can I ask you a little bit about that? The way that you write at the end of this book about...
We're not going to talk about the end, because that's blowing the ending, Matt.
It's not the end, but there's an important...
It's not the end.
It's different than anything I've read by you. The way that you write about Graeme and dementia and his decline. What was it like to write that?
Well, it was truthful. It was sad. It was not fun at the time, and parts of the book were fun at the time. Parts of it weren't fun at the time, but were funny afterwards. And this is just an interlude in which things are sad.
After he died, you continued to do your book tour, and you write about grief in the moment that you were in. You say that you wandered around in hyperspace, appearing focused but not at all there. Why was it easier to keep going than to stop?
Oh, I think it's easier for everybody to keep going than to stop. Yes, we had quite a rollicking book tour in a very weird sort of way, but my publishers made sure there was somebody with me in all of the places that I went to.
Was it hard to write as personal as you are in that section? I mean, it's a memoir, and so you're obviously writing about your life, but the way that you're writing about that is really, there's a lot that's exposed.
It's a memoir. That's what you do in memoirs.
Yeah. But personally, was it like, I just wonder whether there were things that you thought maybe I should hold this back or I shouldn't?
I think there's a lot you hold back, because who needs to know, but that's what happened in my life. I can hardly not write about it in a memoir.
There's a line at the end of, or near the end of the book, that says, "Art is long, life is fleeting, the shadows lengthen, it's hard to shake the feeling I'm living in the half-life of a partial eclipse."
Oh, you're not very old yet, are you?
I'm older than I've ever been.
And it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, this is just what happens when you get older. So I did write a book, The Blind Assassin, in which the person I was writing about was younger than I am now. And I'm thinking, did I get it right? When I was 60, writing about somebody in the early 80s, did I get it right? Because it's very hard to know these things until you actually do them. And of course, they're different for everybody. So hooray for me, I don't have knee problems. But a lot of people I know do. Or I went to the hearing doctor, and he said, For a person in your demographic, you have remarkably good hearing. And I said, most people in my demographic are dead, so they're not hearing anything. And he was quite shocked by that. I think he was shocked, number one, that I said it, and number two, that I thought it was a joke. But a lot of things do become that way when you reach that age. So you get together with people your own age, and we have what we call the organ recital, which is, you know, what ailment have you had recently? Which part of your body has fallen apart? So yeah, that happens. And if you're lucky and live long enough, which looks as if from your hand you're going to, it will happen to you.
What do you want? I hope the time is long, but what do you want to do with the time you have left?
Oh, you put that so succinctly. I'm not sure. I wouldn't tell you anyway. And I certainly wouldn't tell you what I'm working on, so don't even ask. But, you know, I can still walk. This is good. I can still have interviews with you.
Oh, well, I hope there's more.
That's a measure of mental health.
I hope there's more. It's always a joy to talk to you. And this is a wonderful book. It's surprising and funny and sad and everything in between. And yeah, you're a marvel. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And happy birthday again. And many more.
And many more. Thank you very much.